We're here today because we wanted to shed light on our daughter Denver's journey. Denver, for the most part, she was given a grim prognosis at 30 weeks gestation. We learned that she had what's known as the vein of Galen aneurysmal malformation. This is a rare condition that affects the functions of the veins in Denver's brain, which also could include high output heart failure. So Denver's journey started with a separate diagnosis. So at 28 weeks, well, leading up to 28 weeks, I started experiencing this intense itching on my legs. The itching was so severe to where it kept me up throughout the night, just literally tearing skin from my legs. Well, contacted my doctor's office and was very persistent in being seen. At first, they pretty much told me that it was pregnancy hormones, but I've never experienced anything like that in my previous pregnancies. So I was seen that day, and in being seen, they ended up doing lab work, which I didn't get the results back until 29 weeks. So when the results came back, it showed that my liver bile levels were elevated and I had intrahepatic cholestasis of pregnancy. Well, that prompted my doctor at that time to now do weekly ultrasounds to monitor the baby, because intrahepatic cholestasis comes with its own risk. So that led us to an ultrasound at 30 weeks. And then that's when they discovered that Denver had a large malformation on her brain and her heart was enlarged. So at that point, things kind of took a change of course, contacted Derek.
And I'm at work and I'm head down. And the next thing you know, my phone rings. Derek, you need to get here. So I was like, what's going on, And I don't know, something obviously is wrong with the baby, right? So I'm like, hey, I gotta go.
We were given a diagnosis of vein of Galen aneurysmal malformation. It was something that we had never heard of before. It was foreign to us. We learned that it's a rare disease and it's a rare condition, rather. Denver is 1 in 58,000 that has this condition. So of course, in learning of what was going on with her, it took a while to process those things.
So my background is electronics technology, right? But when the doctor described what the surgery procedure was going to look like, to me, it looked like an electronic circuit, which basically the nerves and the vessels and everything look like an electronic circuit. So when he explained it, it literally made perfect sense to me, because I was thinking about what they were adding was resistance, like adding a resistor into a circuit. And I was like, wow, I seen it so clear. So I knew, I'm like, this has to work. Based on the analogy, it has to work.
We were overwhelmed with different emotions. Well, in the beginning, it did weigh heavy on us. Of course, after having 3 previous healthy pregnancies, going in like in the thick of our pregnancy, we wasn't expecting that kind of news. So of course it weighed heavy. We were a little bit emotional, but because we're deeply rooted in our faith, we trusted that God would just lead us and guide us, and we continued to pray. We had this community of prayer warriors that stood behind us, and we just wanted to give her the best opportunity possible. We were connected through our own personal research with a support network, so Vein of Galen Support Network, just learning a little bit more about the condition. They put us in touch with other families that had similar diagnosis or same diagnosis. We ended up meeting with a doctor in New Orleans who was gracious enough to refer us, because we learned that, there's only a limited of doctors or specialists that has the experience with neonates. Considering that 50% of cases are diagnosed in utero. So that doctor was gracious enough to refer us to the team in Boston, which ultimately performed that groundbreaking history-making procedure in utero brain surgery on Denver. So there was one that was successfully done. The first in the world was done in France in September of 2022. And what they found with that child is that it was a short NICU stay, and that child is doing well from what we hear. So the process itself was similar to an amniocentesis, where it was an ultrasound guided procedure. So they used a needle to strategically place coils inside of Denver's malformation. Because it hadn't been done here in America before, this is a part of a clinical trial. So of course there were risks associated. Among those risks, of course, it could have been preterm labor, could have been fetal demise, brain hemorrhage, and even maternal risk for myself as well. But in Denver's case, the procedure itself was successful. Ended up delivering her 2 days, 2 days after the procedure due to my premature rupture of membrane. So my water ended up breaking, which was the risk that was discussed during the consult. So Denver, actually, she was born 6 weeks premature, and the doctors just didn't see what they would normally expect to see with kids with her condition. It was a sort of a miracle, medical miracle, and she just wowed the entire medical community at how well she did, considering that grim prognosis in the beginning. I mean, we brought her home. We were in a NICU for 5.5 weeks in Boston. We came back home so that she can meet her siblings back here. Everybody was excited, of course, to see the baby, but she had done so well to where without knowing her history, you wouldn't know that she had this condition. So she's been meeting her milestones. She's just like a typical 11-month-old. She's actually exceeded her milestones in quite a few categories. So she has this ability to do things that babies without her condition that they're doing. And unfortunately for some babies with the condition, they're unable to do those things. So seeing her crushing those milestones and building those relationships with her siblings at daycare and with other people, it's a blessing in itself.